60-second headline. And I run down some news right quick.
Run it down, mama. Put us on.
Hello. Can you hear me? You cannot hear me. You can hear me.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Very loud.
Amazing. Oh, okay. Should I turn it down? Am I good? I'll turn it down a little bit.
It's like,
Okay.
no, we can hear you, sis.
Listen.
Hello, how are you? Welcome.
Good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here to talk to you about these headlines.
So happy to have you as well. Now, let's give the people some context. Where are you joining us from? How did you become so on point? Because you are one of these people that I just came across on the internet who never misses. You've always landed on the right side of right. And I'm always like, yes, exactly. So can you please tell people a little bit about yourself?
I appreciate that. So I am joining you from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I am a law professor. I teach constitutional law at the University of Minnesota. I focus on the First Amendment, speech, and press through a critical race theory lens. And that means I spend a lot of time with the ancestors. And as long as you spend time with the ancestors, you're going to end up on the right side of history. If you spend time with them, you heed their lessons, right? You treat them as whole human beings, full of nuance and complexity, you're going to be on the right side. So, I think that's part of it.
You got Octavia right over your shoulder.
I do. I got Octavia back there. Look, I got Martin up there. I got all kind of folks. We keep them all together.
I see you.
So a lot of what I do is trying to think about the way in which democracy is experienced in a racialized state. And right now we're at an inflection point of that. So I think, I didn't know it before, but I was being prepared for this moment to have something meaningful to say. So I try to use that as best I can.
Here's just a random question I'm throwing out to you because I was thinking about it this morning. When I was on the road this week, someone asked me, well, what is going to be the difference? Because I keep telling people, like, Israel is about to colonize the United States. And even if they don't say it that way, that's what's actually happening. I don't know if y'all know this, but they were flying the Israel flag on the White House yesterday.
Know that.
Yes. And also I saw a video the other day of somebody, I can't remember who it was, but they were hugging Donald Trump saying he's the first Jewish president. So like, this is a real thing happening. And so I told them, I said, well, we're going to experience apartheid, but in a much more outward fashion. Like they're already talking about, we're going to have to start carrying our passports because IDs are not going to be enough. And I said, we are already experiencing a certain level of apartheid, first with white people in this nation and the way the Justice Department deals with them differently, but also in the way that we see Zionists being dealt with differently, right? Because the First Amendment rights that are given to Zionists are not given to people who are pro-Palestinian. Mm-hmm. So have you started to kind of expand at all your lens of looking through the racialized lens to include Zionism yet?
So what I tell people is that the United States has never not been a racialized apartheid. Mm-hmm. It's just typically been confined to the darkest folks and the folks who, and by the darkest folks, I mean Black folks, right? And so what we're seeing, I want people to stop treating what we're seeing as an aberration. The problem is just that we don't know this nation's history, and that's also on purpose. And so we think how Zionism is being treated is somehow an aberration, or the Antifa attacks are an aberration. We have never allowed people who were pro-humanity, who were pro-civil rights, who were pro-human rights to speak freely in this country. Mm-hmm. It is part of the foundational structure. It is part of this country's architecture. There's a great line by W.E.B. Du Bois where he's testifying in front of Congress, and he talks about how the United States creates witch words to stop people from speaking freely. And he says at first the witch word was abolitionist, and then it was socialist and communist. Yeah. And I would argue, and that's the climate, the context in which he's speaking at that moment. But I would argue that now that word is terrorist.
Oh, absolutely.
And so we levy it, of course, at pro-Palestine protesters because we have this architecture in place. We've just now repurposed it for the moment, right? Even all of the things that Project 25, and I know you're going to get to Project 2026 or the revamp of it, are doing are actually a continuation of the history of this kind of architecture. It's just that they fought so hard and been so effective at keeping this history out of school, at keeping it out of the mainstream media, at keeping it inaccessible, that people don't have it to frame what's happening in this moment. So it's not actually like we're moving in a new direction. It's just that what's been confined to the margins and to Black folks and to pro-human folks is now reaching the mainstream, is now migrating to the rest of society. And they're trying to establish it as the paradigm explicitly in a way that it's historically kind of been laundered under the patriotism, under the security banner. They're still trying it. It's just not as effective. And if it's not effective, they'll use brute force. I think that's the difference, if anything, is that we're entering we will brute force everyone. We used to just do it to Black folks and socialists and communists. Now we will make you into the person we need to do it to.
Yeah, but isn't the new part what they're contextualizing it into? I mean, I feel like I never heard of anti-Semitism or I never heard of anti-Semitism as a brute force effort, as a brute force tool until the last 2 years.
I think that's right. I think that's right. I think that certainly this is the latest iteration of it, but I think it's important.
But why? That's what I'm trying to get at. I feel like people are really not riding with me on this, and I'm right. And I need y'all to understand this. Because the people in these positions are Zionists. Like at one point in time, it used to be, everybody's white in these positions. And now it's that everybody is a Zionist in these positions. Like the legal field in the United States is very much run by Zionists, right? Like the actual Supreme Court, I mean, they may not be Jewish, but they're Zionists.
Yeah, I think Zionism right now, the political Zionism that you're talking about, is the nucleus.
That's the only kind of Zionism there is.
Sure. Won't disagree with that.
I mean, in terms of Israel, like it's
right.
It's not. They lie and say it's religious, but
that's what I mean, right? Like if we think about what Israel represents, right, on the global geopolitical stage, it is the culmination of what all of these earlier iterations have represented.
Absolutely.
Right? It is. So there are three things I argue will always provoke the most violent response from the United States, and why you didn't see the kind of violent response at the No Kings protest, right? It is anti-white supremacy, anti-militarism, and anti-capitalism. If you attack any of these three things, and especially if you attack them all, you will provoke the most violent response from the state. Right? On many levels, Israel functions as a proxy for the United States for those efforts, for those pursuits. It is, when you talk about building, what do they call it? The Riviera or whatever they're talking about building in the Gaza Strip. When you talk about the defense contracts and the amount of money that's flowing over there, when you talk about the history of colonialism, when you talk about colonization and the eradication of indigenous people, you are speaking to the heart of white supremacy. You are speaking to the heart of the military-industrial complex. You are speaking to the heart of capitalism. And so those elements of our society are the foundational building blocks of this country and have always been. And so anytime you are trying to make inroads into reallocating the power that has amassed within that structure, you are going to provoke the most violent response. The Palestine-Israel conflict is the latest front of that in our society, and one that we're all intimately connected to in a way that we haven't seen in those past iterations because of how social media is functioning, because of the way that the internet has allowed us to connect to one another. So you had a lot of the things that we're seeing, deporting people, vilifying people, attacking universities, we saw in the early 1900s and early 20th century with communist and socialist movements. You saw with civil rights activists during the 60s, from the 40s to the 60s. You saw during the antebellum period with abolitionists. It's just that we all weren't watching it unfold on our phones, and we didn't have those real on-the-ground accounts to compare it to the propagandized media machine, political machine that was fast at work, in a way that now we kind of have this to mitigate, which I think is making us more engaged, which is why this one feels so visceral. This one feels so poignant, because we're experiencing it in a way that we haven't experienced these earlier iterations. But this is the United Statesing.
It is. I think that we are short-sighted in thinking that this is about the United States. And I'm just going to say that. And
I agree.
I think what we I think that that's the thing that I'm trying to get us intellectuals to kind of expound upon, is because we're literally seeing Zionists steal property in the United States the same way they're doing in Palestine. I just saw a man who is serving time right now for stealing 20 homes. He stole 20 people's homes in New York, grand larceny. And the judge for his next case said, you know what? We're going to give you time served. And so for these new 20 homes that because he already was serving time for something else. So now he's serving time. Now he was on trial for 20 homes that he stole in Brooklyn, to my understanding. And the judge gave him time served, and he's not going to serve a day longer.
But this also mirrors Donald Trump.
He's a Zionist. He's a Jewish Zionist.
This also mirrors, though, Donald Trump pardoning the home healthcare guy who stole the millions of dollars, and then him pardoning the drug trafficker guy from Honduras. Right? And what I'm just trying to say, so I would say two things back to what you said about. I would say one thing in response to this is not about the United States. And one of the ways I think that is really evident, I saw someone on Democracy Now! Summarize this really well. And they were explaining that they were saying that this group of people, the cabal of folks who exist, for example, around Epstein, are not tethered to a nation in the way that they're tethered to each other. They use the globe as their terrain, right? It is not a United States. So I think framing it in terms of, it's not about the United States, and that the United States is not the pinnacle of the pursuit. It's just one more hub that these people use to operate from, right? And it has the kind of military infrastructure that allows them to wield global power, right? Bingo. And so I think it's important for us to think about this in terms of, there's no allegiance to the United States surviving, right? I think that is probably the biggest misconception, is that people believe that there's some loyalty or prioritization of the United States making it. There is not.
No.
Right. There is a priority for these people to make it. And to the extent that they can use the United States to advance that, they are inclined to do so. Right. On the flip side, though, the other reason I think you're right about the way Zionism is being used, but I think Zionism is being used not for the purposes of Zionism itself, but because Zionism is so conducive to these other priorities. That's why you get the Honduras president. That's why you get the pardons in these other ways. That's why the things have been listed. This is about some fundamental priorities for these people in charge. And whatever tools they can use to advance that agenda, they will, right? And this
their agenda
happens to be one of the tools.
Right? Like their agenda is to take, like, it sounds very Pinky in the Brain, but their agenda is to take over the world.
We're run by Marvel villains. I mean, it's absolutely Marvel villains who are in charge. 100%.
And so I just find that as I'm watching these things happen, like even the conversations around Jasmine Crockett, people are like, well, why does it matter? Then I see James Tallarico, on an interview today, and it's like, well, I have some really good bad news for y'all. Both of them are trash.
I would go even further. I think our focus on individuals is the problem. This is why I try to insist, right, that this is the architecture. These are the leaders it's going to produce. You want different leaders. You want different leadership. You want a different leadership paradigm. You need a different architecture.
Absolutely.
You don't that's why I keep saying, right, one of the things that happened, I think about 6 weeks ago, is the Trump administration sent out letters to a bunch of universities. Brown was one of them. Vanderbilt was another one. And essentially they asked for these universities to alleviate any commitment to DEI, to significantly scale back the number of international students that they're allowing in, and to alleviate things that make people hostile to conservative ideology, right? And in exchange for doing this, and to agree to a tuition freeze, which most people agree with, but in exchange for doing these things, they will get priority for federal funding for grants, for research dollars, for student loan dollars.
Everything is quid pro quo. It's unbelievable how corrupt all this is.
It's true. It's true. But what this is essentially saying, and what this directly contravenes, is this idea in American society that we have a marketplace of ideas, that every idea gets to compete equally, and whichever idea is best will prevail. But what we actually have, and have always had, is a very carefully curated set of ideas that we are allowed to access. And they are ideas that can have no robust competition lest they be eliminated. Right. This is why they don't teach about socialism and communism in schools. This is why the fight over how much racism you can talk about, whose perspective you can talk about it from, this is all because in order for white supremacy, capitalism, and the militarism that we have to survive, it's why King, shout out to you, it's why King said that they were the three evils, because in order for them to survive, you have to alleviate competing ideas. So what this administration is doing is reluctant as people are to engage with this fact, is they're not an aberration or a deviation from our trajectory. They are a continuation of it. When they say they're trying to reclaim traditions, when they say they're trying to bring us back to these American founding ideas, they're consistent. They're not wrong. And a big part of that is inhibiting a free dialogue, is inhibiting the free flow and exchange of ideas, right?
Which actually is a great segue into Project 2026.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
because
yes.
I feel like people thought it was just like 2025 all the way live. And it's like, no. They had more coming for us, y'all. They have more coming for us. And I definitely thought I had transferred it into my computer. So I didn't. So that's a problem. But I'm about to do it right now.
Okay.
So tell me this. When did you find out about Project 2025?
I think around the same time everybody else found out about it. I mean, 2022, 2023, maybe.
That's not when everybody else found out about it.
Oh, well, okay.
I mean, Kamala didn't start talking about Project 2025 till 2024.
Well, let me be clear. I don't think when our politicians decide to address something publicly is a good metric for when it actually became publicly known. Right. Again, these are people who are ambassadors for a system that thrives on deception. Right.
But there are many people who did not hear about it until they heard about it from her, because they look at them as the source.
Yeah, we got to stop that. We got to stop that. Yeah.
So here we are, y'all. Heritage Foundation said, don't sleep. We got more for you. And they have released new fascistic policy. Thank you to So Informed for putting this together. Some points of note in their blueprint for 2026 are the American family, the dignity of work, and the future of free enterprise, which you were just speaking about. National security, which we need to always put in quotes, because we need to put the security in quotes within the quotes, because it's not actually securing the nation. It's the same ethos as Israel, where it's we're going to cause friction with everybody else and call it securing ourselves, when really what we're doing is creating a reason to make weapons. And the American heritage and citizenship. They want to eliminate ranked choice voting altogether. Do you know about ranked choice voting?
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people are supporting it as a way to mitigate the kind of corruption that we're seeing run rampant in our political parties.
So ranked choice voting, y'all, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm still sometimes a little shaky on this. Ranked choice voting, to my understanding, is when basically they put a number of folks that are up for election, and you can vote by ranking. So you don't just choose one, you can rank who you want in preference. And then that is narrowed down by how many people ranked a certain person by 1, how many people ranked a certain person by 2. So that is why when Mamdani was in the primary, everyone was like, rank him as 1, because that would push him through. That allows for there to also be more opportunities for different kinds of candidates versus you only getting these these two options and maybe a possible third if there is a Green Party or independent option that actually has elevated itself in that district or state. Is that correct? People are saying that's correct. So, okay. They want to roll back environmental and energy regulations. This is the part that I know that it's about money. I know. But I'm just like, do these people know something I don't know?
About?
Cloning.
You went back to Pinky in the Brain, huh?
Like living forever. You know,
Yeah, so I will say two things about that. One, I think it's important for folks to keep in mind that for capitalism, everything is a resource. The planet and the people are resources.
We're going to talk about that later for the critical thinking segment, because I don't know if you saw that CNN has partnered with Kalshi, which is a betting app, so that you can now bet on actual world events. So we're going to talk about that a little later, because the owner literally says in an interview that anything can be made into a commodity. But
that
please keep going.
A fundamental part of the U.S. And also, though, one of the things that the wealthy kind of oligarch that we talk about, I saw someone call them the five horsemen of the apocalypse.
Yes.
Peter Thiel, Alex Karp, Elon Musk.
Well, they're on the cover of Time, these AI folks too. It's just, and they're praising them.
They have dumped a lot of money into eugenics. They've dumped a lot of money into living forever. They've dumped a lot of money into immortality, into stopping aging, into reversing aging. You've heard these people talk about merging their consciousness with robots and so forth and so on. So there certainly is a push. I think that there's an acknowledgement that the resources are finite, and that means that people can't survive in our current modality into perpetuity. And so on some level, these people have accepted that and are attempting to accelerate it and prepare themselves for it with bunkers, with technology that allows them to extend their life, with all kinds of, so there absolutely is, and they still look tore up. Listen, imagine being such, I'm just gonna say this one thing about that Vanity Fair photograph. Imagine being such a self-loathing white supremacist that you lust after Black woman lips, because if y'all don't see them needle injection marks,
it is wild. It is wild.
So anyway,
it looks nuts.
It's such a, I had a student from Norway come talk to me, and it was just such a refreshing reminder of how untethered this place is from reality, that there's no factual basis for the United States, that it thrives on its hostility and its antagonistic relationship with reality. That is it. So all of these things, the way that the way it's trying to convince us that blowing up babies is self-defense, the hostility to talking about the reality of this country's racial history, the unwillingness to deal with the failings of capitalism, are all emblematic of our hostile relationship with reality. We refuse to engage reality, and we punish people who try to force us to do it. That is kind of the ethos, and that's part of why we're in decline. Because when you at odds with reality gonna win every time.
Facts. They want to reclaim institutions, this is what you were just talking about, of higher education from the radical left. By the way, none of these institutions are the radical left.
No.
Anybody who has been in an institution, you currently work in an institution, you know that it is far from the radical left. The idea that learning, literally just learning, is considered radical. Learning about anything outside of the United States, learning about anything beyond the context of capitalism, beyond the context of white supremacy, is considered radical.
There is a war on reality. It never occurs to these people that whatever left-leaning bias they think exists in these institutions, and I would agree with you, they're the furthest thing from radical in my experience that we can get. But any left-leaning bias, they don't contend with the fact that maybe these are just the facts. Maybe you got a bunch of smart people together. They all looked at the history and the data, and they were like, well, damn, there's only one. They refuse to engage with, and that's why they have to send these letters out to say, you please eliminate these things from your curriculum because our ideas cannot compete with them. The reality is so clear. It's so anchored in the truth that we can't compete unless they're eradicated.
It's the same way these people like Hillary Clinton and Sarah Hurwitz are like, you guys need to stop showing videos of reality because it's getting in the way of our indoctrination and lies.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's exactly right.
Cut it out, you guys.
That's right. That's right. And it shows how dependent we've been as a society, or the power structure has been on propaganda, right? That's how it
1,000,000,000%.
Yeah,
I mean, I feel like growing up, I mean, I know the word propaganda, but only recently was I able to really point out just how pervasive it is and completely regular. Yeah. So let's run through these other ones real quick. We got advancing policies at the state and federal level to restore the nuclear family to the center of American life. So I was reading something the other day that was really just basically saying that the nuclear family is actually problematic to human life, because this idea that you would only have you in a house with you alone is just so they can control you more. And I had never really thought of it that way.
Absolutely. The nuclear family is an institution to police women and queer folks. And it is to make sure that capitalism, it's a survival mechanism for capitalism because it requires you to be tired all the time. You got to think, if you have people, families and familial models should depend on the village model.
Yes.
We need people in our community who don't have kids. As somebody with kids, I need my kidless aunties to be like, look, I'm gonna come take them for the afternoon, for Saturday afternoon, so you can have a moment to yourself. That allows me to recharge and restore and do some critical thinking and do some reflection. There's no, and if they don't want you thinking in the universities, if they're going to take it out of the universities, they don't want you to have time on your own to do that study neither. And if you are in a nuclear family where you are working even when you are at home, where home is a job, right? To sustain the household, where it's a miniature society like they want to play, then you don't have that time. That's by design.
And, you know, you have Adrian here saying you become dependent on the government and not in a good way. And by the way, they force you to be dependent on the government and then shame you for being dependent on the government. It's just a cycle of nonsense. The last one is reducing both the demand and supply for abortion at all stages of human development. The demand? Everything you listed before this increases the reality that folks will not feel safe having a baby. They won't feel supported. They won't feel healthy, all the above.
Don't they sound like slave owners? Ain't that what a slave owner would say? They want you. I mean, this is
what a slave owner would say. Damn.
This is a reenactment, and this is what I keep trying to get people to understand. Like,
you gonna say what I'm saying? Say it.
The plantation and the slave. This is part of the societal architecture. It's never gone away. This is just a revival of how our society depends
Make America great again.
Yeah, absolutely nostalgia for the past, and if you look back at the trajectory of the institution of slavery, even after slavery, they were nostalgic for it. You had slave in a box. You had things being marketed as and for convenience as
slave in a box is nuts.
It is. It's true. It is. If you've never looked it up, you should Google it.
A slave in a box.
You should definitely Google it. But yeah, so even our obsession with AI and like robots, it's like you can have a slave, but it'll be a robot, so it'll be okay. And we have never reckoned with the material implications, how slavery shaped our expectations, our identity, what we believe luxury and success looks like, our quest for leisure, etc. So this is, I mean, the social fabric and social mores changed to some extent, but if you recognize that the ultra wealthy are in a lot of ways removed from that social fabric, right? If you think about, I mean, and we encounter it on a regular basis. Think about when Jay-Z says, I don't land at the airport. I call it the Clareport. Right? He's saying, I'm somewhere you can't get to. Right? I'm removed. I'm far away. I'm like, somewhere you can't. Airport? You can't. Exactly. That's the point. That's the point. So the people who, and Jay-Z just a little billionaire. If you compare him to Larry Ellison, 275,
that was so no shit. You just a baby Billy. You just a baby Billy. Calm down.
If you compare him to somebody like Larry Ellison or Elon Musk, these people are several layers removed from society.
And there's several generations
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So whatever our social mores and sensibilities are around slavery are not ones they have been socialized within. They exist within a kind of corporate architecture that we've privileged, that's privileged in the Constitution. This is why people not understanding the history of slavery is so detrimental to us collectively. Because if you think about, people think about the 3/5 compromise and the slave trade clause, and they think about it as just a racialized provision. No, these are corporate provisions. These are provisions that say that Congress, which is supposed to be the most representative body because it's the body for the people,
come on, lawyers,
cannot regulate or cannot stop the importation of slaves. Who is that for? Who's importing slaves? Big business. I'm the only people who can afford the ships, to staff them, to pay to kidnap these folks, to get people to risk their lives for the likelihood of mutiny when slaves would revolt on these ships. You're talking about a carve out for big business that's constitutionalized as part of our federal architecture, right? And so we've always privileged corporations and corporate power. And then we connected it to the 3/5 compromise, which said that cargo, that's how we think about people in this country, as cargo. So when they treat us like inputs and labor and humans as a resource, that's part of our foundation. That's part of our architecture, because they called people cargo in the Constitution. And then they said that cargo could translate directly into political power with the 3/5 compromise. The more slaves you bring in, the more representation you have the possibility to get in Congress, right? In the House of Representatives. And so there's a direct link, there's a direct relationship here between the power that we see being wielded and the results and the lack of care about humans. This is part of our ethos. So when they talk about restoring enterprise, when they talk about, they are talking about
even making corporations a person.
Right. When they say, I mean, people think it started with Citizens United. Citizens United is just a modern manifestation of that constitutionalized principle, which says that corporate, huge businesses, corporations wielding political power is part of our ethos. It's good for us. We've always had that, but because we don't study those provisions like that within that context, because we kind of say, oh my goodness, those were slave clauses and they were about, racism, and we don't do that anymore, right? They're inoperable now. We don't need to spend time with them. We don't recognize their implications for our modern.
But they also very casually these days be going back to those laws, right?
Oh, absolutely.
They be pulling up laws from 18
absolutely.
Right?
1798. He's doing it right now. When the Alien and Sedition Acts, he's using some of those acts to deport, which is really just to exile people without due process. But he was relying on the 1798 Alien and Sedition Act. So we absolutely use those laws.
Well, speaking of immigration, I'm going to talk later in the show about uprisings that are happening in Portugal and Bulgaria, but I'm going to do a quick pivot because I did not know that you was from Minnesota.
I'm not. I live here, but I'm not.
That you live in Minnesota.
Yes, I do live in Minnesota.
And so I do want to shout out Minnesota because they have been, and of course I'm saying it just like Bobby's mother would on Bobby's World. Bobby, we're going to Minnesota. And I just want to shout out Minnesota and the work they're doing against ICE.
Yeah. For our Somali neighbors. Absolutely.
Yes.
Hold on.
I don't think there's criminal charges.
Why would I disclose it?
That is not your business.
Wait. That doesn't make any sense. First of all, if he committed a crime in the state of Minnesota as an adult, that's a public offense. So you all can disclose it. So what is a crime?
They have one person named Juan that they have to detain, and that person is inside Centromex. Don Henry has the right to say no to anyone.
So Don Henry is the owner of the market that they are guarding.
His business. So he went inside to talk to his wife, make sure his staff are in the know what's going on out here. They have not produced a warrant. They asked Don Henry if he was a citizen. They asked him to identify himself. Don Henry showed him his passport. They didn't ask me for my passport, but that's okay. It's called discrimination. So we're gonna stay here, guys. We're gonna just stay put. We gotta make sure that Don Henry needs space and time to think about what's best for him, his family, and his business, and we're gonna follow Don Henry's lead.
We made our way to the center of the crowd and found a woman being held face down on the ground. People were screaming to let her go.
We kept yelling, she's pregnant, she's pregnant, she's pregnant. They put their knees in her, and we kept telling them, she can't breathe, let her up, let her up.
In the chaos, the woman who was handcuffed was suddenly being dragged by one arm as the angry crowd threw snowballs and screamed at the federal agents.
Do you have a heart?
By the way, throwing snowballs at them is probably the most Minnesota thing I've ever heard of. Because one thing about Minnesota is y'all really know about some snow.
We do.
You look like a nice guy. Do you have a heart?
Now, I don't know about you, Ra'Shya, but I couldn't have this. This is why you got to have different folks.
That's right.
This is why you got to have different folks in the organization, y'all, because this couldn't be me talking.
Agreed.
Don't do no shooting around me. I can't breathe. Don't do no shooting around me. I love you. Let's be family. Let's treat each other good. Let's show the media that we care for one another.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for standing down. Don't bother the people. Love you. And I'm glad y'all was.
I'll pray for you.
We'll pray for you.
God bless you.
I adopt the Stokely Carmichael perspective. People got to have a conscience for you to reason with them and appeal to their conscience. And I just can't believe if you out here dragging folks out of the car line from schools, you kneeing on pregnant women, you got a conscience for me to speak to, friend. But you know what?
But they left. I mean, but it was a combination
of
all. It was a multi-pronged approach, right?
It was.
Because folks was not playing with them. Folks stood up. They linked arms.
They did.
You know, then you had the person who was the communicator.
Yeah.
Like I always tell Claudia de la Cruz, like, don't send me to talk to no cops.
It ain't gonna go well.
It's not. I'm gonna ruin the whole operation. Don't never let me talk to cops. I will ruin the whole operation, Ra'Shya. Everybody gonna get arrested. We all gonna get shot. Don't.
That's not your ministry.
That's not my ministry. No.
Okay.
If you send me to talk to the thugs, right? Send me to talk to the YNs. I'm good with them. But the cops, no. Y'all gotta put a bail fund together for me, right? Seal squad.
I mean, we are operating in an extra legal terrain. That's the other thing folks are not reckoning with. People like,
that's why when everyone says this is thank you. Like, sue.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Again, we don't know history. If we knew history, we would know how unreliable. You just, it's like a hit or miss. You might as well, play the lottery. If you feeling that lucky, you should play the lottery. It's just, all of this, and this is really, I think, the most powerful point. It is both terrifying and powerful. All of this was created. We created it. We created it.
Yeah.
That means we can uncreate it.
Say it.
Right?
Bring it back. Bring it back.
We can uncreate it. We can make new stuff. And here's the thing. I trust us to make new stuff more than I trust the broligarchs. Certainly more than us. I trust the people. I trust humans. I trust us. And this has been proven over and over again. It's why they don't leave us to our own devices.
That's why.
It's why they have to manipulate what we learn and what we see and what we hear and how we speak to one another. And the lines we draw to connect ourselves and separate ourselves. Because this is why they went after TikTok. Because they thought it was just an app where folks was over there dancing. And they found out folks was over there having conversations. And they were like, oh, we have got to shut this shit down. Let the kids talk.
Yes.
Let them talk.
Then they tricked them and started dancing and teaching. Hey, Zionism's gonna take us down. Hey, Project 25, learn about it.
And then Larry Ellison was like, I'm gonna buy it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna buy it because we can't have this. And I'll buy whatever other mediums I need to. Right? Like it's an act of desperation. It's an act of desperation. We should absolutely see it as an act of desperation, and it should also terrify us. And I'm hoping I don't know what it's going to take.
Desperate measures, when people get into that phase, they lose any semblance
100%
of humanity that they did possess.
100%. And that's a human thing, right? This is why this is violent crime. The more desperate people are, the more desperate they're willing to be.
Which is also why they are creating scenarios for,
that's right.
You know, when people were talking about SNAP, I saw someone say, oh, well, they're just trying to make people feel bad. I'm like, no, they're trying to make those on SNAP.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Same with housing.
Because they're always, of course, trying to feed a free labor force.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right.
So tell me this. We were going to talk about a bunch of things, but then we ended up talking about a bunch of things. You are a First Amendment rights specialist. And so we got to talk about what's going on in Cali with this Antifa indictment.
Yeah. Well, did you see Benny Thompson's exchange with the FBI director about Antifa? Did you watch
I'm about to play it for me. I'm about to play it for you right now.
Okay. All right.
Let's start with that.
Yep. That's starting place.
As Antifa headquarters.
What we're doing right now with the organization.
Where in the United States does
That's somebody grandpa. That's somebody grandpa just asked you, did you eat the cookie? And then you start being like, well, what I said was no. I asked you one question.
Did you eat the cookie?
That's it. Yes or no?
Does Antifa exist? If it's a terrorist organization and you've identified it as number one.
We are building out the infrastructure right now.
So what does that mean? We're trying to get the information. You say Antifa is a terrorist organization. Tell us as a committee, how did you come to that? Where do they exist? How many members do they have in the United States as of right now?
Well, that's very fluid. It's ongoing for us to understand that. The same, no different than Al-Qaeda and ISIS.
No, I don't want you. I'll ask one question, sir. I just want you to tell us. If you said Antifa is the number one domestic terrorist organization operating in the United States, I just need to know where they are, how many people. I don't want a name. I don't want anything like that. Just how many people have you identified with the FBI that Antifa is made of?
Well, the investigations are active.
So you wouldn't come to this committee and say something you can't prove. I know. I know you wouldn't do that. But you did.
It would be funny if it wasn't real.
It was such a glaring example of how disconnected we are from reality. And we don't have to be. I mean, that's the scarier part, is that we don't have to be connected to reality. And I would also argue this is true to the FBI's tradition. This is the type of stuff J. Edgar Hoover used to do.
1,000%. It's just that they were able to do it under the shroud of secrecy in a way that they're really not able to do at this level.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
So let me just give you all some background around what's going on. So federal prosecutors in California have indicted 4 people on charges they plotted to bomb multiple targets in California beginning on New Year's Eve. The Justice Department describes the individuals as being part of the Turtle Island Liberation Front, okay? And that they're absolutely pro-Palestine, far-left, anti-government, and anti-capitalist. The 4 people arrested, Audrey Eileen Carroll, Dante Garfield, Zachary Aaron Page, and Tina Lai, have what the Justice Department and FBI have deemed an anti-government ideology. And this was apparently initiated due to the September 2025 executive order signed by President Trump to root out left-wing domestic terror organizations in our country. Now, I just want to add this very important caveat that the indictment relies heavily on a paid FBI informant.
Yeah. This sounds like pro. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
This is both, right? Because McCarthyism popped off because of a really like zealous senator being like, I'm trying to pop off. Like he couldn't care less if people were communists, but he was like, oh, I can get a name doing this.
Yeah.
And then you had Hoover, who was like, I'm also trying to get people to not know that I'm gay and black. So let me just get busy too.
Hoover was also raised under, if you will, like his political tutelage. He was originally, so he's hired in the 19 teens. A lot of people don't realize Hoover is hired by the federal government in the 19 teens, and he leads the FBI until 1972. So he has a career spanning more than 50 decades with the federal government. And when he starts out,
multiple wars.
Absolutely. Under Woodrow Wilson, and Woodrow Wilson introduces the Espionage Acts that says you can't say anything bad about the government. He uses muckrakers, which are propagandists, to drum up support for the war. He labels anybody who's anti-war, anybody who's anti-government, anybody who's anti-white supremacy as a threat to the national security. So this is the climate, the rearing, the tutelage under which J. Edgar Hoover is introduced to the federal government. And so if you just look at the lineage, I mean, we're talking about apples falling from trees. This is the fruit.
This is the tree.
Yeah, this is the fruit. This is the fruit of that. And because we've never been willing to grapple with it and tackle it and unpack and dissect and break down, child, is these markers? These is markers on white paper signs that they drew? Is this the evidence?
This is the evidence. This is the evidence. We also have to understand that, quote unquote, evidence always has to be in quotes, right? Because even as we're talking about Luigi, we understand that there's just simply is always sideways stuff going on, and they are not able to track possession of evidence. You constantly have, forget Luigi, let's go back to OJ. Like this. Where are you? It's not like these cops are in any way above board.
No.
I mean, this is the other evidence. Here it is. Hold on. So PVC pipes.
These was just out in the open in somebody's front yard. They just took a picture. I mean, none of this stuff makes sense. Like at this, what? Oh. Who writing them signs? You got a whole internet you can speak to. Who writing with Crayola markers on 8x5 printer paper? Their idea, like even the way that they're, and this is another thing though. This is why they attack education the way that they do, because they don't count on us being smart enough to think critically about what they put in front of us. And they want it that way.
And the whole gun situation after CK. Right. Mm-hmm. And how it was like, oh, there was nothing there. All of a sudden there's something there. And then on the bullets, it just looked like chicken scratch. And so like I don't like black people. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. It's just nonsense. Let me also add that the indictment, that the attorney, what's his name? The federal prosecutor, Bill Asaley. And I want to show you all a picture of him so you can just see what a prick looks like. Because I think it's also like sometimes you just see certain pictures of people and you could tell that this is somebody who wasn't getting none, and this is his way to try and get some vagine. This is first assistant. Look at him. Look at him. Look at him. You can tell he's just corny. He's a corny guy.
Wow.
This is Bill Asaley, who says the group was targeting U.S. companies with their bombs. He did not elaborate on the companies. The complaint also alleges that the 4 involved in the plot were not attempting to kill people. And if they saw anyone in the area of their bombs, they would try to warn them. They're going to make their initial appearance in federal court Monday afternoon in Los Angeles.
I bet you there was a lot of pressure to find an indictment after that very embarrassing exchange with Benny Thompson. I bet you there was all of a sudden an urgent pressure to produce something or someone, even if it doesn't stick. That's the other thing. All of this is about the theater of it, right? There's so much political theater happening that I think is meant to distract us from the real actual maneuvering that's happening. And they use Crayola markers and 8.5 by 11 printer paper to do it because they believe that we don't have the literacy, the media literacy, the critical thinking skills, the historical context to situate their efforts. And I think there was a judge too who ruled that person was not supposed to be in charge of that office. And then they just kind of changed. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's a court ruling from a judge that what did you say his name?
Staley.
He's not supposed to be leading that office. So they changed his title, but he's still doing the same thing. Yeah, right. Again, we're in an extra legal.
Well, the other level of nonsense that is happening is that they also know that mainstream media is not going to dig further.
That's right.
Right. They also know that mainstream media is not going to correct with the same effort that they promote.
That's
so mainstream media might put this story out there, but let's say, like you said, the theatrics then dissolve into this was nonsense and we're going to throw this out of court and you all can go your merry way. We're not going to see that story.
That's right. Well, I mean, the media is invested as much as the political apparatus in those fundamental building blocks. So they're not, I mean, this is why you don't see media that's critical of, shout out to African Stream. They did African Stream, ain't right. This is why you don't see media.
Well, they have Ahmed started something new called Sovereign Media.
Oh, I didn't know that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, Ahmed collab. So it's called Sovereign Media and he's working on it. And we actually have journalists that join once a month from the previous African Stream, but now Sovereign Media to do what we call the Africa Tap In. Oh. And they give us the 1-2 on what's going on the continent.
I love that. And I love you for making space for that, because that kind of elimination is also why we're here.
Yes.
Because you don't see media that's critical of the United States. You don't see media from the marginalized perspective, and mainstream media will not do it. They will create the campaigns for these awful things to happen. And then years later, apologize for the lynching campaign, apologize for Iraq. And I imagine we will see in a decade or so, apologize for Palestine.
Well, speaking of Iraq, we're going to talk about Rob Reiner later in the show. And Rob Reiner did the film Shock and Awe, which is about the ways in which the New York Times and mainstream media help to support the lies of the administration at the time, Rumsfeld and these folks in carrying out the manufactured consent for the war. How can people follow you? Where can they get more Ra'Shya Ghee in their lives?
So I love you dearly, and I'm going to correct you, Ra'Shya Ghee.
Why have you let me talk?
I was waiting for the end. This was the time. I was waiting. I just did it. So there it is. You can follow me. I'm on Instagram as Highly Vibey.
But there's an underscore, isn't there?
Yeah, maybe in the middle. Highly_Vibey.
Okay.
Find me.
And
yes, like that. And I'm working on other stuff that I will put on. I'm working on doing podcast stuff. I don't have the scheduling. I don't have the time right now to add it into all the other stuff that I'm doing, but I am working on it. So my hope is to talk more about the ways in which race, law, and politics are engendering the American decline. And, a lot of folks are talking about leaving or talking about what they can do. I want Black folks to realize that our home is with each other. I would be hesitant to call this place or any other place our home. A home is a place that nourishes you. A home is a place that nurtures you, that welcomes you, that's happy to see you, that builds you up, where you find refuge. I don't know if any of those characterizations would fit our experience anywhere, especially here. So I want us to start thinking about each other as our home, and whatever we do, I hope we begin to think of ourselves collectively with that.
And that connects to my concept of we are the soil.
Yeah.
We did not get to connect to the land that we had to become experts at. So we have had to be the land.
Yeah. I hope we take that and internalize it. I think our attempts to save this without engaging with what that means for the globe, for our species, for the planet.
Like, what are we saving?
Yeah. You're talking about saving American democracy. And
you were never an American. It was never a democracy.
And it's going to kill the planet. It's going to kill us all. Whatever you think you're trying to save, you want to prop up Jasmine Crockett while they sending tax dollars over there to bomb babies. I need us to I want us all to be well. I want us all to be well with each other. And I want us to understand that, ain't nothing particularly wrong with Jasmine or Kamala, except that they exist in a system that demands this of them. This is the price.
No, there's something wrong with that. They made, like, why are you even giving them that out? Like, they made a choice to go in there. Like, no one held a gun to their head and said, you got to go in here and do this. And other people have gone in there and not done that. So they actually did not have to be that. Cori Bush went in there and didn't do that. Rashida Tlaib went in there and didn't do that. Summer Lee went in there. And
but in fairness, they got Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman's ass out of there.
And this is gotten them out of there if the Democrats actually had their back.
Well, that was my other point, more so about the Democratic apparatus, of which Jasmine Crockett and Kamala.
But they support that.
They didn't say nothing. You talking about you for the people. They just snatched your people who for the people out of here, and everybody was quiet. I don't like that.
Kamala married a Zionist. Do you know how much it takes to marry somebody, y'all? Do you understand in this country what it means to marry somebody? She married him. They're family. They're family. She married him.
As Black folks who know that we always on the bottom of any calibration about human worth, I just don't know how you can endorse any position where you calibrating human worth and putting people on the bottom and don't think your ass is next.
And then you'll say to yourself, well, this is for the preservation of America, which Jasmine Crockett has said. So again, like you said, we are caught up in this preservation of a place that has never preserved us.
And the preservation at what cost? You willing to burn the whole planet?
Yeah.
And what you think gonna happen when the whole planet burned? Who you think next? Who you think they feed into the fire next?
The logic just seems so obvious to me. And that's why I can't give them a pass. These are not young people. These are not people who are somehow, misled. These are not people who are struggling financially. These are not people with children. These are not people who have any excuse other than a desire for attention.
For power. Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think a lot of it is, again, especially for Black folks, we have not healed. So we understand our wholeness as proximity to white power. And so we believe that can restore a part of our humanity. No, because I spend time with the ancestors. So, I mean, I know my worth and my value. I just spent time. This woman predicted what we going through 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
Like, I also want us to change how we refer to Black people, because I know so many Black people that actually don't, right? That actually don't operate like that do spend their time with the ancestors. They come on this show all the goddamn time. They come to my book tours. So like this whole, we enable at a certain point when we're just like, I get it. It's like, come on.
But everybody ain't healed to the same extent.
No, they're not.
And everybody ain't had the same opportunity. Some people don't even know that healing is available.
Correct. I'm just saying that we apply that to people who do have that access. We apply that to people who are actually available, who do have the availability financially, time-wise, etc., to do that. And we do that because we have an ingrained love and grace that I believe is actually a part of our just being human. Human.
Yeah. I need to see. I mean, my ability to recognize the humanity in every other person is part of my own humanity, right? My humanity survives because I can see humanity in everybody else. I don't think it's an excuse. I think it's just an acknowledgement of where we are and how much work needs to be done. If we just say these people are bad and write them off, it doesn't give us a pathway for the healing that will need to take place collectively. I think there are more unhealed people than there are healed people. And I think the majority of unhealed people don't have power. I think that's why we don't see it manifesting in this way. I think there's a lot of healing that needs to happen, and we're going to have to make space for that and create an architecture and talk about what healing looks like and what it doesn't look like. And one of the ways it doesn't look like is turning towards white power as a form of validation, as a form of redemption.
So do we continue to platform unhealed people?
No, we should not be platforming these people. I think that's the difference, right? We don't throw people away because people aren't disposable.
Fair.
But we don't platform them either.
Fair.
Yes.
Yes. We're on the same page.
All right.
I was like, we are on the same page. We're going to get there.
Yes.
Because the page is the same. Because I think that's the thing, is that nuance is what so many people are missing. Like when you critique a Black politician and they say you're tearing her down. And it's like, well, this is actually a constructive criticism based on facts that actually addresses them as a politician even more than them as a character, as an individual, right?
Yeah,
like at the book reading I did in the book talk I did in Dallas, someone was like, well, you know, I want to support Jasmine Crockett just as a person. And I said, then send her a birthday card.
Yeah. I mean, I agree.
You know, like she's not running as your sister. She's not running.
That's right.
She's running as a representative for office. And, you know, there just really is a very real reality that there's a system in place that is bigger than the individual.
Yes, absolutely.
And some might say, well, then why are we expecting an individual to change the system? And what I'm saying is, I don't expect an individual to change the system. I do expect that if an individual goes into that system and they are telling you about change, that they need to be acting differently than other individuals in that system.
And I mean, I think we have to come to grips with the system is not receptive to change. You have to be an arrogant ass motherfucker to believe that all these people who came before you, all the brilliance that you draw from, all these other people just couldn't figure it out. You got the answer. Or you
folks love telling me like, you need to run for office. And some people say, Amanda, you need to run for office. Either side of that spectrum means that you think that just me is about to flip this whole script.
That's right. It's the system. I mean, it's like anything else. You're not changing it. It's changing you. You got to respond to it. You have to respond to its incentives, right? What it incentivizes the behavior, it incentivizes in the behavior it does not.
Unless your goal is not to stay there.
Yes, which we need to, if we're going to do anything, we talk about the system we need to build a system where people do not make lifelong careers out of these positions. So that way that they are not trying to please interests that are not the ones that they promised to address when they got in there. I absolutely think that that's true. But I think that also means that governance needs to be more collectively shared. A big part of this is that folks like opting out. They don't want to do the work. They want to show up every 4 years, cast a ballot, and then be like, I did my job. And it's not that. It's a weekly, daily kind of burden that requires us all to participate.
But that's also not even really genuinely possible
in capitalism. Correct. Yeah. Absolutely. So that's why you have.
We also know that they're cheating. So I think that also leaves people what's the word I'm looking for?
Disenchanted? You mean who's cheating? Who's cheating?
All these elections are cheating because there's corruption.
How can you cheat a rigged system?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's rigged.
Yeah, that's right. So that's what I mean. Like those fundamental building blocks, and this is why anti-capitalism, anti-white supremacy, and anti-militarism will always provoke the violence of the state. Because in order to get any of those other pieces, in order to get collective governance, in order to get an educated polity, you need to attack those concentrations of power. And so those are the heart of the thing. When you attack the amount of money we sending over to Israel, when you attack how corporations can amass the wealth that they amass, when you attack the way that race is taught in history, when you get to the heart of the thing, when you attack colonialism, how colonialism is taught in school, when you get to the heart of the thing, that's when you begin to break down those power structures. As someone who's taught this for years, I would get people in my class who would be like really hostile at the outset. And then by the end of the class, they'd be like, oh my God, I didn't know. I had no idea. I hadn't been taught, blah, 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 blah. That's why schools are as contested as any election and any court case. Because the moment you can get to the students, that's why they're opening a Turning Point chapter on every high school campus in Texas, right? While simultaneously outlawing honest discussion of history, outlawing critiques of the United States. Because if you can get to the minds of people, if you can orient and socialize them into a particular kind of critical thought, all of the rest of this becomes moot, right? They will adjust accordingly. And so, I think if we need to start there, not with fucking Jasmine Crockett.
And there you got it. Thank you so much.
Lovely. I'm so glad we got to connect. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Y'all know what to do. Follow Ra'Shya Ghee at highly_Vibey on IGs and get the knowledge. And thank you for teaching the babies and the adults. Amanda.